Welcome back to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker, host of the program, and the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with Barb Schlinker, the owner-broker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Barb, this is an unusual topic now that it's become more of a buyer's market, meaning the buyer has the advantage. Why would a buyer pay more than the asking price in this market?
Well, believe it or not, Richard, there are some homes that are put on the market that represent a really good buy for the time. As an example, I was around back during the meltdown, and homes that were selling back then were the homes that were priced very, very realistically. They didn't necessarily have to be pretty, but they were priced where it looked like the best buy for the buyer at the time. So if the buyer finds out that there is competing offers, which I think it's fair for them to know. I just had this deal last weekend where I had lots and lots of people look at the home. Well over 100 looked at the home. Ended up getting 8 offers, and I let them all know we have multiple offers. I sent them all the seller's disclosure so they know everything about the house that the seller does. And that way they can make a good decision about what is the best offer that works for them, right? It could be whatever offer they made was at the top of the budget. But there were other people that were capable of paying more, right? So if they really wanted to get the house, it's no longer the mission of the buyer's agent to get them the best deal. It's to get them the house. So, the best offers that we got, the amount of seller paid closing costs, which cost the seller money. Some of them limited their commission, and some of them made really good offers. So that's just how it is. And it's up to the seller to pick the best one that works for them. So we don't see bidding wars that often anymore. It's kind of fun. A lot of people use something called an escalation clause. And what that means is, and the buyer's agents will do it to kind of try to save their buyers money. So they'll say, all right, I'm willing to pay whatever the price is, $425. But if you get a competing offer, we are willing to pay $2,000 over the highest offer up to, say, $435. That's called an escalation clause. That's contingent on them seeing the other offer that proves that you got a higher offer than theirs. And then they will zoom their price up. So we could counter them at a higher price. So it's not a bad strategy for agents to deploy when you have multiple offers. But in general, you're going to see bidding wars if a home is priced right and all the stars have lined. It's priced right, it's good condition, it's a good buy, it's affordable. And that's basically what happened this last weekend. And all the buyers have no idea how much the other offers are. So I will get those questions all the time from agents. I had one last night. She goes, so you're not going to disclose how much the other offers are? I said, no, that would not be fair to the other buyers or the seller. All I can say is make your best offer. What is that number for your buyer that if somebody else pays more, they're okay with it? This is their max. That's what I would do if I was wanting to buy a house in that situation where I was facing competition. And a lot of people assume that they have to accept an offer if an offer comes in at full asking price. Well, that's not necessarily the case. I got a full asking price offer yesterday, but there was the little fine print in there that the buyer wanted the seller to pay $30,000 of their closing costs. And oh, by the way, they wanted the seller to wait for 2 months while they maybe sold their house. So no certainty in that kind of deal. And the closing costs were definitely a deal breaker. With all strategy of buying and selling, you really need a strategy. You need a plan. What is my budget? What am I comfortable with? Working with the buyer right now that really, there are certain homes in the same price range that have more than double the property taxes than older houses. So he's going to pass on that because he's trying to keep in his budget. but pricing is a critical one. And the agent can either pass or fail when they position their buyer for success. And I think the more information, the better, right? I have some agents that will just shove me an offer and not call. I just get it on email. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I guess I have an offer to present, and they don't tell me anything about the buyer. There is an emotional factor to this. Some sellers want more information because they love their neighbors and they like the idea of being able to tell their neighbors who the buyer is for their house. They also sometimes they will accept a lower offer just because they liked one buyer over the other. Has nothing to do with anything other. I mean, it's price, but let me give you this example. One of my colleagues in San Diego had this beautiful home where he put a lot of his own custom landscaping into the house. He got 2 offers. One offer came from a buyer that was the highest offer, but he said he was going to rip out the landscaping because he didn't like it. The other offer was less, but they said how much they loved the landscaping. Guess which offer they took? The lower offer, because it was more important to them that they appreciated the work that they put into the house. So you never know what the reason is for acceptance. Most of the time it's money. It could be closing date, who's closing sooner. It could be other reasons, so it's completely up to the seller. And so if you're a buyer, it's absolutely critical that if you're in that multiple offer situation, you actually do put your best foot forward. Make sure that your lender letter is ready to go. Make sure that the listing agent has time and opportunity to talk to the lender. Not every lender does all their homework. It's only 1 week of school to be a mortgage broker. And I have seen situations where I got multiple offers on a property. And I went back to the lender and looked at some of the top buyers on the list and asked the lenders, hey, can you tell me, have they already been approved through underwriting? Have you verified their income? Have you verified their tax returns? Do they have a house to sell? So really important questions that are not in the letter, right? And the answer was, well, we're halfway there. I'm like, okay, we're going to pass on this buyer and that offer because they're not prepared to buy a home. So you really have to, it's important that the agents educate the buyer to have all their ducks in a row before they make offers. That's the best case scenario, and present their buyers in the best light. I had one recently where I had 2 offers and the lender letter didn't say that they went through all those hoops, but they had done it. So when I got the lender on the phone, I'm like, but your letter doesn't say that. Well, we've already done it. I'm just like, oh God. So it's a lot of times the sellers are also don't have all the facts when they make decisions. So the best that they can do is actually prepare them to buy a house, especially if there's competition. And some of the things that will blow up contracts are contingencies, appraisals, asking for, you can actually waive the appraisal, even though you have to have one. You can waive that you're going to object over the appraisal. Having a house to sell, in most cases, is a deal breaker for sellers, unless their home is already under contract and you're past inspection. Chances are it's going to get to the finish line. That's okay. Some of the other things that kind of bother me in a bit more is when the agents throw in these big, long, in blue font paragraphs where with this, then that, and it, I don't know who writes those. We're not lawyers, but I've seen stuff in there, Richard, where it says, the seller has to disclose the future value of the property or the buyer's future use. How would you feel about that?
I would not go for that. And I'd have to say, Barb, I have so much respect for you and your experience and your negotiating skills that I would trust you absolutely on that, because I don't think that's something that would fly.
Yeah, I finally asked one of the agents who does a lot of sales. She's a pretty good agent. I said, who wrote this? And she goes, an attorney wrote it. And I'm like, that makes sense. Keeps them in the courtroom. They make more money. So, but anyway, most agents don't really read the contracts and pay attention to it. A lot of times they're grabbing these little clauses and they stick it in their file and they go, oh, that's cool. I'll use that. And they don't even think about what's in there. Some of it is redundant to what's already in the contract. Some of it doesn't make sense at all. So at the end of the day, if you are in a competing offer situation, you have to present your buyer in the best light. Otherwise, they might get rejected over little things like that. So if you are thinking of making a move, give us a call, 719-301-3900, or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard.
You're listening to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. If you're thinking of selling or buying, call Barb at 719-301-3900. Now, Barb, we're talking about bidding wars and how a buyer can get an offer accepted in this hot market. What are some other things that you're seeing in the market?
It's my job, if I'm working for the seller, to create demand for the home. That's important. So I do that with imagery, the online presentation of the home, helping the seller to decide what's the best strategy as far as pricing, all these different things in order to create demand. Unfortunately, there's a whole bunch of forces that work against us on the demand factor, because once you go on the market and then you accept a contract, most home sellers are really happy at that point. They're thinking, all right, I'm going to the finish line, at least within 30 days. I'm going to be sold and done and moving on to my next house in life, right? However, there are a lot of contracts could fail. Most of the reason they fail is because of either inspection or loan approval, which is shocking to me. It's like, wait a minute. You went under contract and you couldn't get a loan. Why are you going under contract if you haven't really completed that part of the process? So they've already, at the time they get an offer, they're happy as clams and yay, we got it done. But then the fun begins. The buyer does the inspection and they ask for stuff, and then maybe the appraisal comes along, or all these things could happen, right? And the rules with the listing services are that we have to tell all the agents the home is under contract. Well, if we change the status in the system and that goes out to all the tech company websites, the other buyers also think that it's not available. So they quit being interested in that home. So that's demand destruction, right? But what if the deal blows up down the road? What if it falls apart over inspection? That does happen more often than I like it to happen. And now we've got a problem. So I keep marketing. I find a way around some of those rules. I'm sure I'll get in trouble for it, but it's my job to create demand. I had one house about a year ago, beautiful home in a great location, multiple offers. She took who she thought was the best buyer, which was allegedly cash. And then as time went on, probably 2-3 weeks in, well, maybe I'll get a home equity line of credit, or, oh no, I got to pull out of retirement to do this. And then she just canceled the contract. There were 7 other buyers that wanted that house. That home never went back on the market. We went back to the 7 buyers, and the next highest buyer, boom, got the house and closed right away. So it worked out really well. But that doesn't always happen. A lot of times you have to go back on the market. And guess what the number one question is if you go back on the market? The agents come back and go, what's wrong with the house? It's not the house, it was the buyer, right? So I don't like that part of the industry. It's kind of an industry norm and standard that actually hurts my clients. So you really want to hire somebody that has the expertise and experience to help you get to the finish line all the way. And we do this all the time. So give us a call at 719-301-3900 or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
Listen, you want an agent who has the knowledge and experience to help you with solutions to your home sale problems. Regardless of your situation or budget, Barb's team can get you that help. Barb and her team have a help program where they can pay for improvements to make reasonable updates that can make the difference between sold for top dollar and not sold at all. To find out more, give her a call, 719-301-3900. When we come back, we'll be discussing what buyers agents actually do, plus Barb's hot new listings. Don't miss that.